My name is Lindsay Maess, and I graduated here in 2005, so I graduated 7 years ago. I had a major in biology, and I had minors in psychology and environmental studies. And I know my entire life that's what I wanted to do, so everyone asks, how do you get into this? But since I was literally like 4 years old, that's all I wanted to do is work with primates in Africa. So it's all I've ever known. Don't know how I got into it, but it's all I've ever wanted to do. So I always wanted to have a career focusing towards primate conservation. I also enjoyed the animal care aspect of it too. So when I was at Augustana, I actually did an internship in Zambia, Africa. I worked at a chimpanzee sanctuary. So that's where I got kind of my first experience. And then I also volunteer things kind of like what you guys are doing. I worked at Nairobi Zoo as a volunteer for quite a few years doing that. Back then the rules and regulations weren't so strict, so I could just work with the primates and get first hands-on experience. And then I graduated and I worked at the Toledo Zoo for a year. I worked in herpetology actually, just because sometimes this field is very competitive. And so sometimes you have to take a job, even if it's not exactly what you want to do at the time, but you still end up learning something out of it especially. So I worked in herpetology. And then I resigned. I took a job in South Africa for a year with primates again. Because I had to go back to Africa. So then I hopped back to the United States. I worked at the Detroit Zoo for 3 years. I worked as a grade A keeper. So I worked with chimpanzees, gorillas. And then we got in what's called a drill monkey. Now these are it's a primate species up here. So I always say in the Lion King there's Rafiki, the mandrill, who's got the colorful face and the colorful butt. Well, these are drill monkeys. And they're the same genus, just different species. And so this is what our focus is on where I work at now in West Africa. There's about 3,000 of them left in the wild, and that makes them one of the most endangered primates in all of Africa. So I resigned from the Detroit Zoo. I now work as a biologist for 4 months of the year just to earn a proper salary, because obviously work in Africa is fun and I love it, and I wouldn't do anything else except for you don't make money. It's not a business. We don't run it like a business, and so you just do it because it's your passion, you do it because it's what you love, and so you just learn to get by, basically. So for the last 3 years now, I've worked 7 months out of the year, approximately, in Cameroon and Nigeria. So I work for the Pandrillis Foundation, and what it is, it's an American couple that started work in Nigeria about 25 years ago, and they were consulted by the Nigerian government to do gorilla research, actually. And ended up turning more into, they were confiscating primates just because people would bring it to them and say, hey, I've got this wounded monkey, I don't know what to do with it. So they would start hand-rearing chimpanzees and drill monkeys, and then it just turned into a massive conservation project to protect the gorillas as well as drill monkeys, because the gorilla species that we have there is the western lowland gorilla. But we have a subspecies called the cross-river gorilla. I know no one's probably heard of it, because everyone focuses on Dian Fossey's mountain gorillas of East Africa. But these are actually the most endangered gorilla species in all of Africa. There's about 300 individuals left of the subspecies, which is incredibly small. In a very small area, probably about the size of West Virginia, if not smaller, because they're in small, different little populations. So basically our work is to conserve the area, so we work towards protection of the forests, as well as our main project is confiscating and rehabilitating the primates. So the Pandrillis Foundation, they have a center in Nigeria, which is called the Drill Rehab and Breeding Center, and then in Cameroon, we have the Limbe Wildlife Center. And there could be a potential opportunity for students to perhaps do an internship in Cameroon too, if anybody is truly interested. I'll speak more on that in a little bit here. So for the last few years now, I've been working there, and what we do is basically we confiscate chimps and gorillas from poachers, either those that are being smuggled through, or if we hear by word of mouth that someone has a chimp located somewhere that they're hiding, we'll take our military personnel in and go and confiscate the animal, at which point I step in along with our veterinarian. So we have so many different aspects of the project. So we'll do veterinary care, to educating different school groups. We'll have our keepers go to different little villages nearby, and 2 times a week they'll give education courses to the students, educating them on conservation issues, to help the locals, the young kids, understand the conservation importance of these primates and their environment. So we do a lot of educational work. And then obviously veterinary work we were doing all the time because our sanctuaries are at maximum capacity right now. We're just receiving primates in left and right, especially like in Lindsay. We have no room left to even take in any more gorillas. So unfortunately there are a lot of animal fights, which makes for a lot of veterinary procedures for those even interested in pre-vet. We always let the dart animals, which is always a tricky and long, well, it makes for a very long day, especially when you have a group of drills, say that 100 drills in a group, and you have to get one of them, and you have to run and chase them, and they see the gun come out, and they all freak out, and then they get defensive, and yeah, it's a long process of just trying to hide the gun and throwing the dart on. A lot of times I like to just use a pipe, just to dart them. It's just less stress on them. So I'll just kind of show a few pictures here for you guys, just to give you an idea kind of what we do. Our center in Lindsay it was an old zoo actually that whoever had managed it before, they abandoned it, literally left the chimps and gorillas just to die. So the Pan Drills Foundation stepped in, and they now run it in cooperation with the Cameroonian government. So that serves as their confiscation center, and it's kind of more like a zoo setup, but obviously our function is to, work towards conservation issues and just provide a better life for these animals than what they would have living tied up, at someone's house. Then in Nigeria, our operation is a bit different. We don't have internship opportunities available for here because we're more like research-based, and it's a smaller operation, but yet we have a lot more animals. And in Nigeria, we've got 400 drill monkeys, which they've been breeding over the years. And then we have a massive forest site up in the Cross River National Park. And we established another area within that called the Afi Mountain Wildlife Sanctuary. It's about 100 square kilometers. And what we have is the forest is basically enclosed by electric fence, and then we have different groups of animals. So we've got 6 different groups of drills, and then a group of chimpanzees in massive enclosures, like 20 acres large. So they basically essentially live as if they're in the wild. So that's where we put the ones that are confiscated. We send them up to the mountain. They live a happy life, they're in the wild. We are planning soon, hopefully, a release of drill monkeys back into the wild, which will be the first ever release of these species. There's a lot of issues to figure out as far as that goes. The Jane Goodall Institute, they're doing a release right now as well, or they're going to be doing it at the same time as we are, with mandrills. So it's kind of a parallel project. There's a lot of scrutiny just because of protection of the forest, is it safe, there's so many different issues to consider as far as can the captive population infect the wild populations with any diseases. So all the drills have had pre-health screenings before they've gone back into the wild. We want to make sure we release them into a site where it's not going to potentially affect the wild population, but yet they can still manage to cross over. So there's a lot we'll see in the future what's going to happen with that. So in Lindsay, we would like to build a field site like we have in Nigeria, but there's just right now not the funding for it. As far as the Cameroon government has offered us a site on Mount Cameroon to build a massive field site, much like we have in Nigeria, but it's just a matter of money, and if we want to be tied to the government under their rules and regulations as far as managing animals. So hopefully in the future that will come. But for now, it is a possibility if students were interested to do an internship at the Lindsay Wildlife Center. And it's basically kind of like zookeeping work, but you do get experience doing veterinary work as well. At Lindsay Wildlife Center, we've got about 35 gorillas, we've got 68 chimpanzees, we've got tons of drills, probably about 40 drills, probably about 30 mandrills. We've got tons of different guano species, different West African monkey species. We try to focus just on primates, but a lot of people bring us other animals, and there are other conservation groups in the area that we try to send tortoises and whatnot to. In Lindsay, you're off-site. It's actually kind of a pretty nice house. It's about a 10-minute walk from the center. It's a really safe area, actually. Cameroon, very, very nice. In Nigeria, I live in the bush, so I live in a screened cabin in the middle of absolute nowhere. In Cameroon, you buy your own food, you get to go to the market, which I think is just a fun experience too. I mean, when I first went to Zambia, not only, was my internship working with chimps, it was the best thing of my life at the time, getting to do that, but the experience of just traveling around, I went by myself, and just traveling. I went on safari by myself and just, getting from one place to another in Africa, in a foreign country, whether it be, it was a daunting task in itself, by yourself. But in all honesty, I learned so much from that. Even from just going to a market and purchasing food. You wouldn't believe how much of a hassle it can be, yet, it's a fun experience though too. I did my internship in Zambia and I got more experience, still this day, doing work in Africa than, say, at an American zoo. They let you literally just jump in there and do it, so, we had interns when I worked at Detroit Zoo that would come in and they were even maybe allowed to even feed the animals. And I was part of an expedition on Bioko Island, which is off the coast of West Africa. It's in Equatorial Guinea. And it was, and it's actually a project that students can apply for as well. If anybody's interested in doing that, you can, they select who they want. So they usually select like people that are interested in primates or anthropology students or professionals in the field to the expedition, but it's called the Bioko Biodiversity Protection Program. It was just a really neat experience. Got to do it for a month, just censusing primates on a remote island and off the coast of West Africa. So there's tons of different options out there, for in the field, and so don't ever feel like you have to be tied down just to one thing. You can dabble here and there.